Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Goals. I'm Maria Laura.
And I'm Katia.
And today we're traveling with Ginga, Festa, and Fuchibolachi from Belo Horizonte in Brazil to Orlando in the US to meet a graduate in general business and finance with an MBA in sports business who moved from having the spotlight inside the pitch to helping backstage to accomplish the goals of clubs, major events, and international organizations. Lovely people out there, it is a pleasure to introduce Taís Cotta, International Player Specialist for Orlando Pride. Taís, welcome to Two Goals Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Katia. Hi, Maria. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in to listen to this podcast.
So let's start this episode reading a statement that Milton Nascimento and Fernando Brandt in the 70s said from Brazil. Brazil is empty on a Sunday afternoon, right? Look, samba, here is the country of football. So Taís, as you just listened, and you know for sure, you are from the country of football, as Brazilians mentioned. You probably grew up with a football culture around you, as it's intrinsic in Brazilian society and culture. It's something natural from you. And with that environment around you, you decide to move on. So can you please make us a perspective of how you fell in love in football and why, with a very young age, you moved from Brazil to the USA to study? What made you want to study abroad?
Okay, yeah, I think I was born with soccer, with football, because honestly, I didn't have many people in my family that really liked soccer like I do. And when I was little, I asked my mom to be part of a team, and I used to play with the boys in our breaks at school. Mm-hmm. And then I always loved to do it, and I used to watch every single match on Sundays with my dad. And right after, I would ask him to go outside. He's not really a soccer person, but I used to make him go outside with me and then play and kind of practice what I saw the players doing in the match. So then with that, I started playing at my school, futsal, which is, like a smaller type of soccer in a court with 5-a-side. And I did that for a long time. And then I transitioned to soccer and went to the American School of Belo Horizonte. And then that's where I adapted to soccer, to playing on a field, 11v11. And with that passion for soccer, I was like, well, I don't want to just go to college, which is usually what everyone do in Brazil. I really wanted to keep going. I didn't want to stop there. So then, speaking with my coach and my professor at the American School, we decided, I was like, I think I should just go to the US, because over there, I know it's competitive. I know they have infrastructure for soccer with everything that we need, locker rooms, game field, and all that stuff. And it's professional while I'm still in college. So then we worked on videos and everything. And I got a scholarship to come here. So I did my 4 years playing for the university, the State University. And then after that, I couldn't play in college anymore. So I did my MBA, my master's at UCF. So pretty much it was just me wanting to extend a little bit more my playing career after high school. So that's why I decided. And after my college, I also had the opportunity to play at on WPSL in California. So it was pretty cool. I played California Storm in 2016 during the summer. It's a quick tournament that they have, and it was cool to play with so many great footballers. So I played with Brandy Chastain, I played with Cece. So it was I don't think I've been in a team that had that many talented players,
So Taís, I mean, now that you're mentioning your path as a footballer, what would you say football bring you to your current career? I mean, like, what kind of values did you learn from football that have help you through your career after that?
I mean, I think with football in general, like you being a player and the way I was as a player, is just trying to do everything I can to be the best player I can. So I remember when I was in high school, I looked for a sports nutritionist, sports psychologist. I used to do weights focused on everything I needed for the field, and then focus on technical. So I had a lot of different aspects that I wanted to invest in to be the best soccer player I could be. So I think that's like you can do that as a player, but you can also do that in your life. You know, if you want to be a great lawyer, let's say, you need to see what areas that you can invest that will make you the best lawyer. So I think that's one of the things, and I feel like what came from that time for me was just a passion for soccer. I think that's what keeps feeding me every year, you know. So that's what made me be where I am today, because after college and after having that player opportunity in California, I was like, well, if I can't keep playing, I need to work with this sport because I can't live without it. So I think one of the main things that just helped me through the whole thing is just have the passion for soccer. So it's just you waking up every day and loving what you work with.
Was it like a definitely moment when you were like, okay, I will decide to change my path? And I mean, you just mentioned that I don't see myself living without football. So when was exactly when you feel like this, like, okay, I'm moving into working with the industry itself?
Yeah, so in 2016, when I had the opportunity with California Storm, I went back to Brazil for the Olympics, and I had a volunteer opportunity with the Olympics, which was great for me. I was in the game day operation, so I was with Joe Fernandez, who was the match commissioner. So I learned a lot. She was directly working with FIFA, and she coordinated the entire Mineirão Stadium. So for me, it was a great opportunity and kind of like opening my eyes for that type of backstage job. So I even we had the US going there, we had Australia, we had Brazil, we had a lot of professionals and players that some years after that I'll be actually meeting in person and working with. So I think that opportunity I had with volunteering kind of opened my eyes for that backstage working career that maybe I could have. And also it was just hard to keep playing and trying to focus on studies and building my career. So when I came to Orlando, I think I believe it was in 17. I did a tryout for a team here, Orlando Kicks, and I got in the team and everything. But it was so hard for me to do my internship that I was doing with the team back then, and also playing for that team. So the times, I remember that the times for training were like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., but that was the team's practice times as well. So I would have to decide if I wanted to keep playing for Orlando Kicks training, because I couldn't play if I didn't train. So it's either do that or focus on my internship, which could lead me to actually being hired.
So Thais, you were talking about being volunteer and volunteer work. And how do you think this is important for not only how was important for you, but how it is important for the people nowadays? Because of course, when we are graduated, we always think about working and making money, but we need the experience before. And one way of having these experiences is through volunteering. So how important do you think it is, and how it can shape a person to the future job?
Yeah, it's important in many ways. I think, for example, as I mentioned, for me, it was important to open my eyes to the opportunities because I really wanted to work with sports, mainly with soccer, but I didn't know how and where and how all that worked. So I also worked as a volunteer in 2014 in the World Cup, but it was more on the media operation. So I saw all the relationship that the stadium and the professionals have with photographers, with journalists, and everything like that. So for me, it was good to have both experience, but mainly that one with 2016, because that one I could actually see in the backstage, like the game, the operations, the locker room, and everything that it's literally minute by minute that's done. So actually second by second. So like, let's say at 1 p.m., 1:12 and 55 seconds, you'll do this. So like we had a timeline with everything, and it was great to see how everything is set. And I've always played, I've always watched the game, but I didn't know that backstage. So for me, it was a great experience to actually see it and see the opportunity. But as you mentioned, when we try to get in the professional stage, we need some experience, and also for the networking. So the networking, I think it's the best when you do this type of volunteer experience. So with the 2016, that was great for me as well, because my boss, which was the fifth commissioner, I spoke with her a couple of times, and I mentioned I was coming to Orlando, and she was like, "Oh, I have a great friend that lives in Orlando," which at the time was the coach of the Orlando Pride, which was Tom Sermoni. So she was like, "I can introduce you to him so he can help you move there and like adapt and everything." So that's something that also helped me through the process, because I knew someone in the industry as well, through my volunteer experience with the Olympics. So I feel like it's just showing you the opportunities, giving you the networking. Of course, you need to keep, feeding that relationship, but the networking is great, and just getting you involved already. So when I would come and speak with people about opportunities for employment, I would say, yeah, I had a volunteer experience with the FIFA World Cup in 2014 and the Olympics 16. So people know, you already know about the business. So I think that's like, those are great points.
Thais, you're one of the few people in the world with this amazing opportunity of working both the Olympics and a World Cup. So from your perspective, like very shortly, what would you say is like the biggest difference? Or do you prefer working like in a special one? I mean, maybe because you like football better, or maybe you learn a lot more with this holistic perspective with the Olympics?
Yeah, so for me, they were two kind of different experience, even though it was both regarding soccer. So I mean, World Cup is just the tournament for soccer, really. So of course everyone loves that. But for me, because I was working more in the media relations, it wasn't really my area. It was a great, because I always think that it's that like a great professional needs to know a little bit of each area. So for me, it was a great learning experience, but I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be. But I mean, it was also great because when I was working there, seeing everything that happened and how it happened and everything, I knew that that was an area that I didn't want to be in. So it also opened my eyes for that. But I feel like the main difference for me, it was that the World Cup was the men's World Cup in 2014, and the Olympics, I worked more with the women's. I mean, we did have games of men, but for example, I only remember the women's game. So that shows how I'm passionate about mainly the women's game. So I remember the game that we had Brazil, we had USA playing there too. So I remember all those teams in those games. I remember the PKs with Brazil. It was, I feel like it kind of fed my passion for the women's game with the 2016. And because I worked in the competition area and the game day operations, it kind of, I saw that was the area I want to be in. So I think those were the two different points for the World Cup. I mean, they're different tournaments, yeah, but I worked at the Mineirão Stadium, and all the games we had, it was just soccer. So both were soccer. So the main thing was pretty much being men's, and the other one having women's game as well.
Mm-hmm. And aggregating these both tournaments, there's one thing that is common, is Brazil. And you studied abroad, but you came back to work in your home country. And I can relate to you in a way because I'm Portuguese and we have a lot of emotions. Um, how it was for you emotionally to come back to your country to work and develop in a tournament that was so important for the country itself and for the society and culture.
Oh, I cried, to be honest. Like I it's just, for example, the media relations and the World Cup. I mean, I've always Cup since I was little. And I've always, whenever we won games, I would just drive with my dad and like keep honking and like yelling Brazil in the streets. But when I was there, I remember we had a Colombia game, and just seeing the entire stadium like in yellow and doing all the chanting and everything, it was just give me goosebumps. And when we had, unfortunately, I was on the field and the 7-1 against Germany. So I was actually like on the field and like I cried after. And when we had the anthem as well, I would stay around the photographers. So I was literally in front of like bench and singing, and and it was, I just cried because I just don't know, but it's just the emotion of being in your country. You're in the biggest tournament of your sport, and it's just like your passion. So for me, it was just amazing. And the same thing with the Olympics, seeing the anthem being played and seeing like the best. I mean, I saw the best players in the world in those days, and it's just like you don't believe it, like you always think about these great players and these great teams, and you're like, okay, they exist, but you think they're on a different planet. You're not ever gonna see them or have any contact with them, and all of a sudden they're like in front of you. And that was a great thing too, being able to work in some of the best tournaments in my city. So it was just really good. It felt really good because I could just be home with my parents, because at the time I was like studying here, so I was away from them for a while. So I couldn't just go to Rio, for example, and try to work there, because then I wouldn't have my time with my family. So even though we will have like maybe 10 to 12 hour shifts, but still I was with my family, so because we would arrive there pretty early before games and leave pretty late after games. So I remember my mom even complaining, being like, oh my God, you came here to stay with your family and you're at the stadium the whole time. But I mean, she does understand that that's my passion and what I wanted to be. But I also had to have like to be with my family.
Oh, I will tell you something. Since you just mentioned this, I can even imagine how this uh, big event, when big moment in your life, when you meet all these idols that you follow on TV or that you follow when you were little, and maybe you saw them as role models. But also, out of curiosity, I want to tell you that I was in Brazil during the World Cup. I was doing an exchange semester, so I can completely relate to what you mentioned. Even though I wasn't working, I was just attending a couple of Colombian matches. But yeah, I mean, I didn't cry, but I was like really close to crying because of the emotion that it means for a football passion to be at the World Cup, to be supporting the team. So I mean, I can definitely relate to your story. I mean, it sounds incredible, and I can't even imagine working for the actual event. So amazing.
Yeah, it was just amazing. I think another point of working in those tournaments as well is just that, for example, in the World Cup that we had, I mean, I had the men's national team with the 7-1. So if you see the Brazil team and the Germany team, is just like some of the best players. And it was just like those, like working those two events was great as well for my professionalism. So I could see, like, I mean, we had many cases of volunteers and people just taking advantage of
Yeah.
like the opportunity they had. But it was great as well for me to be like, okay, yeah, I've seen those players and those teams in the TV and whatever, but they need to be treated as people, and it's just my job. So I'll just be fine with everything. So like I could be talking with the coach, with any player, and I'm just acting as normal because it's just my job. So for me, it was great to be, of course, I mean, of course, the first day that you see them, at first you're like in shock, being like, oh my God. But 2 seconds later, you're like, okay, cool. And then you just, so for me, it gets to a point that like, you don't get impressed anymore, really. It's just, you're like, yeah, of course you respect all the career and everything, but you just need to be professional when dealing with, and that's what I feel like a lot of the national teams and sports teams and not just soccer, but in general, that they look for in professionals is you being professional around all these, big time coaches, players, and everything.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for this, for sharing this knowledge and this learning, because at times it is hard to understand that. But moving just back to this your professional experience, let's focus on your career now. Yeah, in this point, could you tell us, Thais, what does exactly an international player support specialist do?
Yeah. So pretty much I help the players, mainly the internationals, with everything they need off the field. So let's say we got an international coming. So it's just helping with documents, helping getting set in the city. So with the, cable, anything really. For me, my playing career and also my experience in college, it was great to see the needs. I mean, when I was a player, I knew, like, I kind of have the vision of what a player wants. Of course, I wasn't in the professional side of being a professional player. And besides that, I mean, I came and I was by myself. I needed to just be proactive and do whatever I had to do. So just go to find my ways and figure things out. So then I also felt like how you miss your family so much, how you miss your culture, what the challenges are to be in a different country. And I was also put the pressure of not losing scholarship. So a lot of things involved, and I feel like that was great to know and to be able to help the players with that. So yeah, pretty much it's just, I say I just want the players to focus on training and playing, and that else I can help it.
Yeah, and your role, as you mentioned now, it can be very usual in the US because the business is other, but it's not that much all over the world. Maybe also because the structure of the leagues or competitions in general are still in development. That is normal. But we can see by your example that your role can be essential for a club. So in your perspective, how important is your role for a club?
I think it's pretty important because I feel like, I mean, I remember when I was playing, coaches used to be like, you just need to leave everything off the field and just go there and play. But I mean, I know it's easy to say, but it's really like if you have problems within your family, with, taxes or anything off the field, it's really hard not to be worried during the focusing on your game or on your training. So I feel like it's really important, and it helps the players to adapt quickly. So if you have people coming from a country that has a different language in here and culture, and you don't know how things work here, what you should be doing and which documents you need to get. So I feel like it's just great to adapt. And of course, when teams get we see that happens more with the men's game, because I mean they pay millions and millions for players, and they want the players to produce, so when you go and pay this many like this much money for a player, you want them to come and have an impact in your team, but you can't just expect that the player to just switch to, oh, I'm in Brazil, all of a sudden I'm in England, okay, I'm just going to switch this like thing here, and then, oh yeah, I'm going to work. It's not how it works. So I feel like it's great for them to adapt their family and all these things. So I feel like it does have help with them, playing wise and feeling like good of having someone helping in other matters and being able to focus on training and games.
That is really interesting, because we are aware, well, mainly from my South American perspective, we are aware of the amount of people, both boys and girls, moving into the US with this idea of becoming an athlete, or maybe with only the idea of helping themselves to go for a career, a professional career. But for example, what kind of advice would you give them? I mean, from what you have learned of you supporting these new athletes reaching a different country, different culture, maybe they didn't even manage the language. What would you advise for them to try and adapt to this huge step in their lives, to this huge change into their lives?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was really hard. I can tell by my experience in college. I remember like I wanted to go back home. But luckily my parents didn't let me because, right when you get there and you have that shock, your emotions go up and you're like, yeah, I want to go. But you don't think about everything. So luckily I had my parents being like, no, you're not. So you'll wait a couple months. And if you still want to go and your emotions are down and you're thinking with logic and everything and you really want to come back, then you can. So I never came back. Here I am. So I think it's just like you'll be out of your comfort zone, and that needs to be okay. You're not gonna feel comfortable speaking, mainly if you don't know the language and like getting used to. So regarding language, for example, I think it's a great opportunity. I think the best way to learn new languages is being inserted in the culture and in the country. So it's not going to be comfortable, it's not going to be nice, but that's how you're going to learn the most. And also just trying to learn a bit about language, about how people are. I remember when I was in college, I'm a pretty affectionate person and like always hugging and everything. And I remember my first roommate, when I met her, I was like, hey, and I came for a hug, and she just put her hand in front, and she's like, no, and I was like, oh, okay. So it's just knowing how people act in like different ways will sound different to different countries. So I think that's important, and always being proactive. Like if you're in the country, you're gonna have to figure out how to get your driver's license, what do you need for taxes, and it's just trying to understand the place that you're living, really.
Now moving on to talking specifically about women's football. Here in our podcast, we tend to not compare women's football with men's football because there's no way to do it. But there's differences which we can point out and see them as an opportunity to grow the game. And in this case, the connection with the players and the fans is immense. And there's a closer relationship between them, and we can see it. And women's football, as I said, is well known for the players' proximity with the fans. And you, as a player support specialist, you are a witness of it. So, do you think this is one of the main assets for the women's game to grow and to spread awareness to future generations?
Yeah. I mean, I could see in the games that I worked with in the Olympics, like I could see families in the stands. I could see little kids, and that's a good reach, because those are going to be little girls, little boys that will be growing for soccer already. So little kids, and you see I want to be a professional women's soccer player. I think it's just the connection that they have with the players is so great. I see players taking photos, getting, giving out autographs, and these are just amazing for, a little fan that see the idol signing her jersey. So it's just like a big moment, and that kind of conquers the fan. So I think it's a great way to build. And then those little kids are going to leave the stadium and be like, yeah, I want to. So you see that so many little girls teams, little boys teams playing. So which is different from my reality when I was playing. We didn't have many girls teams until I could play in school and high school in a women's team.
You're working now with Orlando Pride, in a country which is developed for the women's game, as we all know. And in comparison with Brazil, there's a huge discrepancy regarding conditions, structure, etc. So in order to develop the game in the future, do you see yourself working with women's football in Brazil?
Yeah, that's for sure. So, I do want to help my country. So like I love my country. So here I live pretty much my country. I eat Brazilian food. I go to Brazilian places. So I listen to Brazilian songs. So I'm always involved with my culture. And I always say whenever you leave is when you give the most value. That includes your friends, your family, but also your country. Yeah. So it's that thing that when you're here and people are like, yeah, Brazil sucks. I'm like, what are you talking about? So like we are the only ones that can say bad things about Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I can relate to you.
Yeah. So I see that our game in Brazil, it's it's growing, and it got a boost. I mean, in the entire world with the World Cup, of course, the whole pandemic thing kind of slowed things down. But yeah, I do want to, have my experience with women's soccer around the world, and having different, experiences, and seeing different leagues, and different I don't know, just learning, so I can just grab all that and go back to Brazil and help my country with the growing in the women's soccer. I know it's hard. It's going to be a long way, but I mean, it's my country, and it's where my passion. I feel like because I was in my country with that culture, I just need to give it back,
Thais, what you mentioned is really important because, and I speak for myself and plenty of people that I know, we tend to compare in a negative way our realities, our countries with other models. Like we don't take into account the difference in let's say size, culture, population, but also that we also have great things to share. That we are also really good at something, like let's say passion in South America for football is incomparable elsewhere. I mean, we have taught this everyone, like we can dance with football, we can like have fun with football. It's not about being all the time professional and getting all the cups, and it is, I mean, this is a feeling that goes beyond that. So we tend to end our podcast. Unfortunately, we're closing right now. We're getting to the end, but the idea is for us to end with a really positive note. But in your case, I would like to ask you not only for an advice for people out there to pursue their dreams in football, but I also want you to do it like with these comments around people who aren't from these top countries, let's say in football, who doesn't have like this huge structure in women's football in this case. Like, what would you advise them to take into their new paths? I mean, how to bring these experiences that they have from their local realities, and how to take advantage of this to have a successful career, and maybe in the future to try and develop their own countries, their own women's game.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, I mean, as you mentioned, we all have different realities. It's different countries, different cultures. It's just a lot of things so different. So, I mean, I know that those realities can be really tough. So, for example, I see regarding players and their realities here and back home. I just feel like like I mentioned way before, regarding you just need to do like take the most what you have and the reality you have. So, for example, when I was kind of preparing to come to the US, I was like, okay, what do I need to do to be a better player? So if you see that you need more, strength, you need psychology and like nutritionist. So just trying to find around you the options. I know sometimes can be tough realities, but mainly if you don't have that, okay, so at least you need to be a little aware and try to be the best you can. That's what I say in everything, not only in soccer. If you want to be a professional, have a professional career, and in the backstage, if you want to be a professional soccer player, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, it's just trying within your reality, the resources you have, it's just trying to be the best you can with what you have.
Amazing, Taís. Amazing advice. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your personal perspective and experience of a role, specifically of a role which is needed now more than ever with the development of the women's game. And with that, we reach the final of this episode. To all of you listening to us, don't forget to subscribe our podcast and follow us on Twitter and Instagram with the name True Goals Podcast. We are also available on YouTube now. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you, Katja. Thank you, Maria. And thank you for everyone that's listening.